I would like to make comments on two scenes separated by 60 years or more than 60 years. The first one in 2017, when Eitan made his exhibition. And the other scene I'm going to describe, 1948, when I was 10. So the first scene is when I published my book, Mapping My Return in 2016. It has been well received by many people. And I thought this is a good opportunity for the settlers on my land, which is Al-Ma'in, which is about 6 by 8 kilometers. Now there are 4 kibbutzim on it: Nurim, Ain Hashlusha, Nir Oz, and Magan. So I thought it may be a good idea to let the people who settled on my land to know who were the people on this land, their history, how long have they been there, 200-300 years back, what they did, and so on, through the story of my life. So in that time, 2016, and even 10 years before, I was in touch with so many Jewish organizations claiming that they are proposing peace in the Middle East and showing some sympathy for the Nakba, which is the depopulation of the people of Palestine from their country, an event which is unprecedented in 4,000 years of history, of Palestinian history. So I thought, well, I know these people. They support Palestine, justice in Palestine. They participate in demonstrations. They write letters. So I wrote 12 letters to various Jewish people of this caliber in Europe, in America, and Australia, and elsewhere, asking them, now that you read the story of the people of Abu Sitta who owns this land, who lived in it for hundreds of years, would you please ask the kibbutzim in our land very simple questions. Number one, do you know who the people who were there? And do you know who, where are they now? Do you know how you got this land? In what way you got this land? In what way the people of the land are not here? The third question is, you know that they claim their right of return to their matrimony or their ancestral land, which they have been forced to leave, and they are now 2 kilometers away. They can see the lights in the house of the kibbutz, and they say, how come we cannot go back? Very simple questions, very peaceful. Now, out of the 12 or more Jewish parties and persons I send this message to, not one had the courage to do that, except, of course, Eitan. Others asked me, we don't know their addresses. I gave them their addresses. Someone said to me, I know someone who could do that, not me. And then someone said, but can I ask them this question with using another name, not mine, hiding my name? I was amazed at that response, that people who claim to be calling for justice, and they do actually claim for justice in newspapers and demonstrations, they were terrified to tell other Jews who live in Israel that the truth, simple truth. So I thought they were hiding in a bubble of denial, which was pierced by Eitan exhibition in July 2017. So I wrote an article, a long one, and published in Mondo Wise, which is a newspaper in America run by Jews who are truly interested in peace and justice in Palestine. And the title of it um, when the bubble of denial burst, you face them with that. And also, in this conversation, we asked someone, his name is Solo. I see that Eitan has met another person who was there in 1948. And this man was present in 1948 in our land, and he knew how it was occupied. And I'll tell you in a moment how it was occupied. And he said there was nothing here. Nobody was here. It was empty land. And a friend of mine, a British journalist, asked him, and how did you come here? He said, we bought the land. This is, of course, a blatant lie. They did not buy from us 1 single centimeter of land. It was taken by force. So this thought, I leave it with you, that people sometimes who know the truth and they hide behind a blanket of denial, because if they admit it, it is a war crime. If they admit it, then they declare themselves to be war criminals, and they don't want to do that. Now, let me go back to 1948. I was 10. I was in a boarding school, and I came home because the school was closed. And we heard from people that the Jews who settled in coastal Palestine around Jaffa, they came to us from Europe, and they came, some of them, in smuggler ships, and they landed in our shores at night. Many of them had even no Palestinian citizenship. Others had during the British Mandate. And I myself, during that time, 1948, I never saw a Jew in my life. I don't know how they look like. Other people said, oh, they look all kinds. Some are blonde, some are dark, some are this. And what do they speak? They speak French, German, Spanish, Hungarian, or something. Why are they here? Why did they come to attack us? We have done nothing to them. Well, we don't know that they are attacking villages around Jaffa and Jerusalem. Deir Yassin was very prominent. And I was amazed, and I said to myself a question which I tried to answer all my life. Why did they hate us? Why did they want to kill us? Why did they want to take our land? And still today, I'm trying to answer this question. But on 14th of May, 1948, an old lady, a relative of mine, light sleeper, she woke up at night and she saw lights coming in, a monster with 48 lights. That was 24 armored vehicles. They came to Al Ma'in and they attacked us. We have about 15 or 20 defenders with old rifles. They kept them at bay for some hours till the morning. And we, women and children, we hid in the ravine in the valley. And we saw, and I saw, the smoke billowing out of our demolished houses and burnt houses. The school which my father built in 1920 was demolished. The water well which you have seen, my father and Abu Ala, grandfather, built in 1933. It was a flour mill, grinding meat to all our harvests, which was plenty. And of course, the well was 95 meters deep, and they blew that up. And this, in the morning, we looked at the black clouds covering all the sky in front of us. And on that day, when we were attacked with this superior force against 15 defenders, I became a refugee in that day. And in that same day, Ben-Gurion sat in Tel Aviv with his council of settlers who came from Europe and declared the state of Israel. I became a refugee before the state of Israel was declared by a few hours. And not only that, in the following years, we heard that the founders of Nerim on our land, which they actually founded the houses in August 1949, almost 1 year after they attacked us, they have committed a horrendous massacre. One of their patrols seized a girl of about 12 years of age, and they killed her brother, and they took the girl hostage. They took her to the present location of Nerim today. And then they decided, a platoon of about 30 people, decided to rape her. They took turn in raping this 12-year-old girl, and then they killed her. And then they buried her in a shallow grave. Some days later, only her hand sticking out of the shallow grave would be seen. It was reported later in Haaretz. But so when we asked, or when this British journalist asked some of the older people in Nerim who were there at the time, what do you know about the mass rape and murder of this young girl? Said, no, this never happened. So the denial is the blanket policy of all those settlers. To, as I said a moment ago, because the crimes are heinous crimes. Crimes will chase the settler Jews all over geography and history. There is another question. We were about 1,002. Now, Abu Sitta family are about 10,000 people, many of them living in Gaza Strip, but they are living in Jordan, in Lebanon, in many countries in Europe. None of them, especially the young generation who are now 20 or 30, never forget the land of Ma'in, and they never cease to demand the right of return from them. So Ben Gurion was probably, not probably, definitely mistaken. He may turn his grave when he sees that the young did not forget as he predicted, and of course the old will die. But we are very much still alive. We are not talking about mythical story in history over so many years back. We are talking about a live history for 24,000 days and nights when we became refugees. Not one single night we forget that our home is nearby and we are determined to go back to it. So the denial of the crime is one element in maintaining the crime. When those settlers admit that the crime has happened, then there should be reparations, there should be return, there should be all kinds of remedy as happened, for example, in other cases in the Second World War. That's the only message I can say to you. And I thank my friend Eitan for his courage to do that. And I'm sure he has been subject to vilification and defamation because he's telling the truth. But the truth, my friends, has a long life. It never dies. It may be buried for a little while by the criminals, but it will come out in the rest of the world very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salman. That was incredibly powerful. And thank you to Eitan as well. And thank you to Gil for all the work you are doing. I think if I would like to say something very quickly because we're running out of time. But first of all, I want to thank you, Salman, for your testimony because so in my case, my grandfather was part of the 1948 Palestinians who were kicked out. He was from Taytaba in the Galilee. And I had the incredible opportunity to go there when I was very young, when I was 10. So I know what it looks like and I remember it. And like you said, we will not forget. but I was never able, my grandfather passed away when I was 9. So I was never able to hear his story from him directly. So I have a very difficult relationship with this, because I don't really, I've never technically been there. I've been there once, but I was very young, and yet I know, I just feel so close to Palestine. So it's difficult, because there's so much I know that I don't know about Palestine, and there's so much more I wish I knew. So this is wonderful. Thank you for that, and I agree. Thank you, Eitan, for confronting people, and thank you, Gil, also for openly talking about this. I think that is what is the most liberating in this project, is seeing people who are technically on the other side, and I say technically, and that are able to say things as they are, because this so often lacks, unfortunately. Denial is great. So hopefully this will help relieve that. I think we should go on to the Q&A. I prepared a few questions for everyone. So maybe I will do one question per guest, just time-wise. What do you think, Gil?
Yeah. And everybody, please do send question in the chat. It will be interesting for us to hear you as well.
Absolutely. Please keep posting, and make sure you write questions, because then we will just be able to go through them, and it would be too bad if you miss the opportunity to ask a question. So don't worry, you're not interrupting us. Just post on the chat. It's absolutely fine. I wanted to ask a question to Salman quickly, regarding your plan for the return of the Palestinians. So I know that you've written a lot about this, and you've studied the feasibility of it, and that it is absolutely feasible. And this is a theme that Eitan has talked about in the movie, about the option of the people of Al-Ma'in coming back. Now, it's kind of a two-part question, but mostly it's, how feasible do you think that still is today? And would you be happy to go back and live alongside the current inhabitants of the kibbutzim in Al-Ma'in?
Thank you, Ghazaleh. I'll try to be brief to give time for more questions. As I said, I was very curious all my life to know who these people who did this to me and to my people. And so I spent many years, when I was studying for my PhD at University of London, I had a chance to see all the documentation of the British Mandate, who created this disaster in the first place. So I collected maps, documents, and all that. Over the years, I created a huge database about Palestine and Palestinians, and I published several atlases. The most well-known of them is Atlas of Palestine, 1917 to 1966. Let me put a little advertisement here. All what I'm going to say is in our website, Palestine Land Society website, which is www.PLANDS.org. All what I'm going to say is in detail shown on the website. And from that, the first thing, of course, to create Palestine, which was depopulated, 560,000 villages depopulated. Most of these villages have been depopulated before Israel was formed. 220 or half all the refugees were depopulated by the Zionist invasion of Palestine before there was something called Israel, before the British left. This fact is very much hidden from everybody. And then we know these people. We have database of millions of Palestinian refugees. We know who they are. We know where they come from. We know their land and their property. We know in which refugee camp they are. We know, of course, they have grown into about 9 times as before. And therefore, I ask myself the question, after we know this, where is their land? Can they go back? We know, of course, from legal point of view, we have tons of resolutions to emphasize and to affirm the right of Palestinians to return. There is nothing in international law, not a single line, which does not support the right of return, not one. Of course, from legal point of view, this is absolutely basic rule, no question. It's even more affirmative than the United Nations Charter because it's part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So that aside, then why we cannot go back? Of course, we know that the Western countries which created Israel in the first place, they do not want to do that. They have an interest because they have very curious situation in the 19th century, early 20th. They want to get rid of the Jews in Europe, but they wanted to plant them in a place where they can be useful for them. So Balfour, who is known for the infamous Balfour Declaration, was an anti-Semite. In 1905, he established a law, an Alien Act, which prevents the European Jews to come to England. He is the same person who wanted to cart the Jews away to Palestine, where they can serve the interests of the British Empire and defend the Suez Canal. Now, coming back to this, we made a study what is the feasibility of the right of return if the international law applies it. We found surprising result, which you can see the details on the website, and that is 87% of Israel's area today is still empty. I should say most of the Jews living in Israel today are living in an area which is slightly larger than the Jewish land during the British Mandate. If you look at land use in the Israel map, according to the Israel study maps, you find that 88% of the land in Israel today is governed by the army. The kibbutz are planted in the village lands in order to prevent their return. For example, all the people in the kibbutzim are 1 to 2% of the Israeli population, and they live in mostly, we have found that 247 village lands have 0 Jews today, and a similar number who have very small number, namely the kibbutz. They keep them in order to prevent the return of refugees. Let me give you an example about Al-Ma'in. Al-Ma'in has 4 kibbutz. The working members in Nirim, which is on my fatherland, has 137 active members. And if you apply the same formula to 4, you get probably 500, 600, 1,000. On return, we are 10,000. And that's why when I made a statistical study of the density of population, we found that in Gaza Strip, where my family, most of them live now, is 7,000 persons per square kilometer. And the settlers in my land, only 1 kilometer away across the barbed wire, their density is 7 persons per square kilometer, 1,000 times less. So yes, if we return and if they wish to live with us, there will be no problem. The question I must emphasize It is not a theoretical question. It is a question that the obstacle is neither legal, nor economic, nor geographical, nor even demographic. It is basically Zionism, which is based on the idea to take Palestine without its people.
Yes.
They wanted Palestine to be empty, as the myth says. They don't want Palestine to have its people. So with the presence of the Zionist principle, there can be no peace.
Yes.
As everywhere in the history of the world, only when the evil of this kind of policy is removed, then peace will prevail. And if it does prevail, there is no problem of logistics whatsoever.
Thank you, Salman. Thank you very much. I'm just going to move on quickly now because we're trying to make up for time. Gil, I would like to ask you a little bit about your work. I know that you engage in different artistic practices, notably the public performances versus gallery setting work. And I believe that obviously that follows a little bit with what Salman was saying about, talking about this and breaking the cycle of denial. But I'd like to ask you more directly. So can you explain us a little bit more about the role of these different practices and why you switch in between both?
Yeah, well, with my work, I've been trying to look to any possible platform to present these issues, and sometimes they are not as black and white, and I do like to touch more gray areas, which this is why I presented here just the project of El Ajoun with internal refugees that in a way outside, I think, Israel, not many people are aware about the situation of internal refugees and what it does to the Palestinian who are citizens of Israel. But this is a much bigger discussion. In terms of practices, so it's not easy to exhibit work on Palestine and Palestinian issues. So when I started to do this, to engage with these issues, I had to do it on the street, literally. So it was intervention in art festivals, intervention in art even markets. I won't give examples now because it will take too much time, but just one example, which is here, that was when I moved back here, lived in Brixton, the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign doing their stall, giving information every Saturday outside Brixton Station. On one occasion, there is a very big art kind of festival, or not festival, but market. I forgot the name at the moment, but with a lot of stall, people basically coming and buying art in Long Street in Brixton. And, it was during 2014, if I remember, Gaza war. And with them, we created ad hoc project, kind of intervention within this art market. So people, I basically enticed, brought people to the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign stall by making it look as if, or it was as well at the same time, an art stall. So people come for the art, but they learn a bit of the current situation in Palestine. It is complicated discussion of what is more efficient or what can cause a change. I can't answer it. I mean, I consider all of my artwork as socially and politically engaged, whether it's in, and this is one of the works that you can see on the website, dressing with a Ku Klux Klan costume made from my Jewish praying shawl, or bringing people into a gallery and inviting Palestinian dance group to intervene within the exhibition. So I can't tell what is more effective. What I can say that gallery or museum space does enable more nuances, a more subtle discussion in times, usually, rather than what I've been doing through street interventions, for example. And it's feel much more secure because I was attacked or had to defend from the police or run from the police when I've been doing some of the works on the street. So I hope this answers the question.
Yes, thank you very much. And be safe, Gil, when you do these things. But thank you. Finally, Eitan, I'd like to ask you a question that is in continuation with all of this discussion. I think, so this is kind of what we've been talking about since the beginning, that when it comes to the subject of advocating for Palestinian rights, we usually look at Palestinians or Arab experts, and we don't really look at Israeli activists, and as Salman mentioned, and Eitan and Gil is doing himself, and you are doing it, Eitan. But what role do you think Israeli society and Israeli activists currently play, and how should it evolve, in your opinion, if it should?
Yeah, I think, in fact, what Salman's told, it's how he began. It was very moving to hear that when he shared with us that he addressed some 12 people to try to reach to, the settlers on his land to deliver them his story and his questions. And I think exactly this should be, our role. And this is what I took on myself since 2001 when I established Zochrot, to bring the history of the Nakba, which is also our history. In fact, the history of Al-Ma'in, of the expulsion of Salman Abu Sitta and his family and his village from his land, it's our history also. I mean, it's not a Palestinian narrative, how the Israelis like to portray it, that it's only their story, they tell their stories. No, it's our history. It's not an easy one, of course. It's not easy to face that history. But I can tell you that, one item that I didn't show here, and also Salman didn't see, I took some pieces from his book, from main parts that he tells about his expulsion, the expulsion, what he just mentioned here in very, very briefly today. And I put it in a video in a certain way with the images from his own visit that he shared with me from 1996, I believe. And then I did another video for the exhibit, and it was the first time that the people from the settlers there in Al-Ma'in land, from those kibbutzim, they saw and they encounter the story of how they left, what happened to them. And for them, it was really, as I told you, very, very emotional, very important moment. Some of them rejected it. It was too difficult for them to watch. I have to say, mainly men. It was really gendered, a little bit according to the stereotype that we have, that men were much more rigid and difficult to reach, to be open to that. But many women reacted very nice to that. And even some of them, as you saw, the woman that by accident, by chance, I met her on one of the days, on many days of shooting that I did on the ground of Al-Ma'in. And I just asked her what you think about the right of return, and you saw her answer today. And also many other people that visited the exhibit, they were open to this possibility. And they talked about the possibility of the return of Palestinians to live together. Not all, but some of them. And it's all, by the way, documented in our website. You can see more about the exhibit. I put the link here. And because we put a small box of messages for the refugees, we asked them, instead of writing comments on the exhibit, we asked all the visitors to write a little message to the refugees from Al Ma'in, which we will open it and expose it after the exhibit and pass it to them. So Salman also was exposed to all of them, and he mentioned them in his article in Mondowise. And some of those messages were really moving. So, you know, and from my experience, when we work on these issues, I know it's not easy, and many people react even sometimes with hostility, even a little bit violence. But many people, more than we think usually, surprisingly, are open to that because they never offered this possibility to talk about it open. And I think it's encouraging, and this is what we are trying to continue doing.
Thank you, Eitan. Yeah, I agree. I am now going to go on to the Q&A part, I think, just because we've gotten to 7:30 UK time. Now I've written down, there's a couple questions already that came out. Now this first question is said to be for Eitan, but I believe, Gil, if you have an idea of how to answer that, it would be really interesting to hear your opinion on that as well. So I'm just going to read the question. So thank you for your work. Based on your assessment, are most Israelis above the age of 50 aware of how their state came about or ignorant of it? And furthermore, are they mostly in denial or consciously enjoying their privileged status despite the suffering continuously visited on others and their descendants to bring it about and to maintain it?
So you want me to refer to that?
Yes. If you know.
Yes, look, in fact, it also has to do with our work from Zochrot. When I started Zochrot, I looked, you know, and I typed the word Nakba in Hebrew, and there was almost 0 results. Today, if you would type the term Nakba in Hebrew, you would have tens of thousands of results. It changed dramatically. Also, because of our work and others, of course, we deliver, you know, works from Salman and many other people, Palestinians and others. And also, ironically, with the help of the Israeli government, when they passed the Nakba law in 2011, trying to prevent any commemoration or talking about Nakba in Israel. And it turned to be a rather known issue in Israel. Today, I can say that most of Israelis know something about the Nakba, at least they know the term. They don't, many times they don't know, they think it's only a Nakba day or something like that, but they know something about it, yes, of course. And even for our book that we wrote, I wrote together with my partner, a book about working on the Nakba with Israelis. It's in French and in Hebrew for now. We conducted the research on the right of return of Palestinian refugees and what Israelis think about it. And we found out again, quite surprisingly, that close to 20% of Israelis are open for this possibility of the return of the Palestinians. So yeah, more and more Israelis are knowing about the Nakba, but unfortunately the issue of the right of return on the political or in the media, let's say, on the political of the discussion is still very, very far from acceptance in Israel, unfortunately.
Thank you. Gil?
Yeah, I don't think I have much. I mean, the Nakba law was basically introducing the history in some way. It's also the law that caused me to lose my job in an art institute in the academia because I just did project with a student which were deemed under this law illegal. But yeah, I think Zochrot was immense in bringing to knowledge, and Unfortunately, while I think most of the people now in Israel know and can't deny it, I mean, you go to places and you still see remains. I mean, if you want to see, I mean, when I grew up in Ramat Gan, which is a small, is a town outside Tel Aviv, there is a neighborhood there that is named Salome, which I, as a child, you know, what is Salome? Because it's not in Hebrew. Unfortunately, while most of the people in Israel knows, it doesn't really change much. Doesn't really change much. And I touch the issues of the internal refugees in a way to touch also the feeling of what is to be an Israeli citizens and know that other citizens in that country are suffering with, in a way, from apartheid law that prevent them to have their property. So I know people who live in small, you know, flats in Jaffa, and they have lands in the Galilee, which they are not allowed to, you know, to take back, you know, they could have been, you know, the Palestinian Israeli citizens are financially in quite grave situation. They shouldn't be like that. A lot of them could have been in much better situation. And what Salman said is very resonant also in the case of Al Ajun. There is a kibbutz that sits on part of the land, but most of the land is still, you know, either fields or a huge forest that was planted there by Kakal. What is in English, Eitan?
Jewish National Fund.
Yeah, the Jewish National Fund, and you still have Jews and non-Jews very recently donating money to plant more trees on the remains of these villages. So,
thank you. So I saw there was another question that you answered, Gil, on the chat concerning institutions, Israeli institutions. Is this a question that we should look at, or as in to what extent do the Israeli institutions that apparently store belongings that were owned by 48 Palestinians. So to what extent does this reinforce or challenge the denial that exists? So it's the idea that there are Israeli institutions holding belongings by 48 Palestinian refugees. Do you guys or Salman know anything about this? Or?
I mean, the Jewish agency and the army and the state do hold. I don't know how much universities for academic institute, but I don't really know about it.
Mm.
Salman?
Can I answer that now?
Yes.
Yes, you are asking a very important question. The area of Palestine is 26,000 kilometers. Israel in 1948 occupied 20,500 kilometers. Now, of course, it's taken more than that. When the British left during 30 years of British collusion to bring Jews into Palestine, they managed to record in British registers 6% of Palestine as Jewish-owned land. Now, that leaves 94% of the land in which Israel sits today to be a Palestinian property. There is no question about that. There is no disagreement about that in international law. Now, the question then, what did the Israeli government, which established the land on this land, do with this land? What did they do? They had a big fight between two groups. One called Jewish National Fund, which said every land in the world belongs to the Jewish people all over the world, and we are entitled to take that land. The new state of Israel, Ben-Gurion, said, yes, but our soldiers, the Haganah, did so much wars and killing and this and that, and they are entitled to hold this land. So this quarrel went along for 10 years between these two. They finally, in 1960, they arrived to an agreement that both will share the control of this land, the Jewish National Fund and the State of Israel. And they formed something new called Israel Land Administration, ILA. ILA is entrusted to control and manage the lands of Palestinians. And they are doing this today. But let me remind you, not one single Israeli today, with very few exceptions, have a title deed to the land he is using. Nareem, in my land, the settlers there rent our land from Israel Land Administration for 49 years. They made it into 19 years, rent. So no Israeli person hold a title deed, with a few exceptions, to the land he's taken over of a Palestinian land. And therefore, from legally point of view, all our land is very well documented. Moreover, the United Nations confirmed that. In 1964, they made a complete inventory of the ownership of Palestinian land. I have, so the United Nations does, a record of 453,000, 500,000 landowners, the name of the person, what he owns, and where, and so on. So the United Nations went one step further. Not only it documented the land of Palestinians, but demanded from Israel and all the member states of the United Nations to register the income and the revenue they derived from the refugee Palestinian land income. They have to record how much they derive from it, entry, and so on. Every year in November, the United Nations have a resolution called Refugee Revenue, revenue from refugee land. Of course, Israel, with the help of the United States, doesn't take notice of that. But let me assure everyone, we have documentation to know the origin and the state and the development of every single piece of land from 1948, more than any other case, more than Bosnia, more than Iraq, more than any other place. So we have all the mechanism. The people are there, the data is there, the land is there. What we need is the will to break the monopoly of the United States, alliance of Israel and the United States. That's the only thing needed.
Thank you, Salman. Thank you very much. I believe that we are going to end at this time because we've gone over a little bit. There was one last question from Dora, but I'm just going to mention that Salman has actually answered that question earlier on about the feasibility of the return. So we actually discussed that earlier. And the response is yes, absolutely. It is not a threat in terms of geography and demographics, but obviously is more a matter of personal issues. So I hope this answers Dora's question. I think this is a great place to end. What do you think, Gil? You're muted. I can't hear you. Sorry. Gil, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, unless there are any other urgent question, we hope to continue this discussion when the exhibition will be at P21. I must just thank Ihye to hosting this exhibition and taking the risk by doing so. it was more than 2 years, I think, of discussion. And then we got the corona. I did had ideas that it's a Zionist kind of conspiracy to stop me exhibiting, but my ego is not as big. So yeah, but it was a big disappointment. But a lot of the work is online, and it will happen hopefully toward the I think it was 17th of September.
I think it's 24th of September to 17th of October.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
and I hope we could host again Eitan and Salman and you in one of the events of the exhibition.
Yeah, I'll be happy to come. I hope Salman too.
Yeah. That would be lovely. I would really love that.
Thank you all. Thank you, Gil, for the structure you created, and big thank you for my old, in terms of years, not of age, of Eitan, my old friend Eitan, and thank you, Ghazaleh, of course, Ghazaleh, of course, and please don't forget to send us the link, because I get messages now. We want to see it from the beginning, so we need the link.
Okay. Absolutely.
Yahya, do you want to say something?
No, thank you very much, Gil. It's not a risk from my side. It's my duty to have this show in the gallery. It's important that people see this work. And I'm looking forward to work with you on this exhibition. Hopefully it will be in a good time after the end of the lockdown and people start relaxing a bit and moving around. But anyway, we'll try also to make sure that everything will be online.
Thank you.
And thank you, Yahya. I forgot to say that because I didn't see you on the screen. Now I see you. Thank you very much. P21 is our home in London. We always use it for our events.
Thank you, Dr. Sitta.
Yes, everyone, please go and check out P21. Has it reopened yet, Yahya?
We are hoping to have something during end of July.
Okay.
So, but we want to just check the guidelines before we make it available to the public.
Okay, well, everyone just check out their website, P21 Gallery in London. And we will definitely, as Gil said, be sending an email around with all the links and a link to the recording, so you can make sure to catch everything we've said if you needed to leave before. And thank you so much to all our participants. This was really, really lovely. Thank you, Yahya. Thank you, Gil. Thank you, Eitan. Thank you, Salman.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Take care.